Hello, everyone. I'm just gonna wait for anyone to pop on. We are doing our give back. Brio is trying to give back as much as possible during this time of self-quarantine, quarantine and social distancing, and rapidly came up with a talk series that we could post on Facebook just to kind of be of a source of comfort and a source of information that you can trust. And so we wanted to do that for our Brio community. And anyone who is watching, just feel free to post on your, hi Wendy, feel free, hi Donna, so there's a few people popping on. So anyone who's watching, feel free to post on your personal page that you're viewing a watch party with Brio. Our goal is to have as many people have access to these little drop-ins throughout this social distancing time. It's our goal to be of service, to give back, like I mentioned. The first few talks have been received very well. There has been changes for people, reduction in anxiety. There's been improvement. Caroline's popping on, and hi to Sammy. Hello, Sammy. I hope you're watching. It's so nice to hear from you guys. So yeah, people are watching, people are tuning on. If you are unable to attend, we're going to be trying to pop on every single day, but if you are unable to attend, these Facebook Lives are automatically recorded to our Facebook page, so just have a look there. If you feel anyone is in need of the content, needs a little bit of reassurance, some calming, feel free to share, because that's what it's all about. We're trying to really help people with what's being unearthed during this time. It's a lot. So I jumped on. We decided to close Brio temporarily on Tuesday. And so our team quickly just put this together, and Wednesday I popped on. Was it Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday and Thursday I popped on, did a couple of lives, and then Vanessa, our newest associate, who is going through the pandemic herself. She has family members who she's helping to, care for. She's caring for herself. She has never been through anything like this. She's a totally new practitioner. And on top of that, to have a clinic closure while you're just trying to build your practice is just, it's devastating. So, but she stepped up so big yesterday, and she did her first Facebook Live. So if you didn't catch it, perhaps if you have a bit of time, try to rewatch it. And it was Friday, and her content was amazing, and it's very heartfelt. And she said she was a bit nervous, but she did so incredible. So proud of her for just stepping up when she's going through everything that we are as well, plus more. Just starting off as a new practitioner is not easy for me. Just the thought of it gives me a little bit of post-traumatic stress. It's a very, very difficult thing to build a naturopathic practice. You have a passion for the profession, but they don't teach you how to turn your passion into a profession. So that's really the problem. And it's a steep learning curve from becoming a student to now. How do I translate this into something that can help people, and translate that, because reading from books and doing tests and stuff, as hard as it might seem, is really the easy part. So huge kudos to Vanessa. She did incredible yesterday. Her first Facebook Live. So on top of all that, also learning the new technology. So I have done several Facebook Lives. I have also been doing seminars for a very long time. My name is Dr. Neetu. If anyone doesn't know, I keep always forgetting to introduce myself and go like straight into it like a bull. Yeah, Jeff says, good job, Vanessa. She did so great. Our whole team is just stepping up big time, and everyone's going through their own stuff. So it's a lot. So yeah, I have done many seminars just for being in practice many years, longer than Vanessa. And also, if anyone, I have an online course that's just about to be launched, and we're doing a trial run. And if anyone has done that course, such as Donna, you will recognize this wall. For 12 videos, you see this wall. So I'm at my home doing this Facebook Live. We are going to pop on every Saturday for at least 4 Saturdays to do a Facebook Live masterclass. And there's each of us doing a topic, myself, Dr. Karen, Dr. Lee, and Dr. Vanessa. So each of us are going to be doing a different topic, and we're trying to keep the times consistent. Donna says, nice wall. Donna's seen that wall for like probably 412 hours. So we're going to be popping on every Saturday. Hopefully keep the time consistent at 12 o'clock. And you can pop on. And also, while you're on, please show that you are watching. Donna's laughing. Show that you're watching with Brio, doing a watch party. And today's class is something that is super fascinating to Brio, totally unique to Brio. It's on our website, but it's kind of like shyly added to our website. We do have like a video, but it's kind of shy, you know, it hasn't been put to the forefront. And one of our goals this year is really implement this like clinic wide. This is our language. It is the way we operate in the clinic. But we just haven't, you know, been as bold about it. And this year we're going to take it and make it quite bold. And so what it is the 4 levels of healing. That's the masterclass today. The 4 levels of healing via the Brio Living philosophy. So Brio Living is just our overarching program. When you're doing a naturopathic consult with us, whether it's pain, seeing acupuncture, laser, Bowen therapy, you are also going through these 4 layers as well. Naturopathically, you're absolutely going through these 4 layers. However, where you choose to stop is the patient's choice, and stopping is for a variety of reasons. Sometimes, you know, you're just not informed that there's more. Sometimes that's all you're mentally, emotionally ready for, and sometimes it can be challenging to go through 4 layers of healing. So I encourage you to find the video on our our website at www.yourbriohealth.com. If you can't find it, I will link it in the comments below too. And we did this video several years ago, but it stands totally true still. And this is exactly how we operate in our clinic. And it may not be said to the patients, but it's very clear. So there's 4 distinct layers of healing, and I'm going to try to keep this talk to about 45 minutes, but sometimes that's hard for me. So let's keep it to about 45 minutes, but I can totally go off on tangents, and this is something that I'm super duper passionate about, and but let's try to keep focused. If I cut out, there's nothing I can do about it. So you can let me know that you don't hear me, but if I cut out, that's been happening a lot with Shaw at my place. It's been happening a lot at the clinic. There's nothing I can do with it. We're trying the best we can. So also there will be a summary that will be sent out via newsletter post talk today. Jeff's linking the video. Thanks, Jeff. So Jeff's linking the video. It's in our about section, so you guys can watch that. You can watch each section and just really kind of break it down to what we're doing here. And yeah, also I want to give big kudos to Jeff too. He is on spring break with his kids and has probably been working harder than while we're in clinic time. You know, his kids obviously are going to be off school a little bit longer than spring break, but he's been totally going hard. And I know it's short term just to kind of serve for Brio, and his kids are great. Christina, his wife, is amazing, but there's, you know, he's putting a lot of effort in, and there should be more badminton time in the backyard, but he's going hard. So our team is really kind of putting in huge effort. So let's give some loves, some hearts to the Brio team for sure. So the link is there. There are 4 distinct layers of healing, and I actually went through this. I've seen other naturopathic practitioners. They have their own kind of philosophies of healing, and sometimes there's 7 layers. Sometimes there's like other, you know, it's just really, it's kind of similar, but it's not. So this is exactly what I went through, and it was very confusing to me because I didn't know what was going on. And my naturopath is incredible, but he really lets the body just unfold and doesn't offer too much. He knows exactly what's going on. He's the one of the forefathers in our modern time for naturopathic medicine, for sure. Taught at most of the schools, taught so many of the students, and now has really a chronic disease clinic in Arizona with his business partner. When he treated me, he had shut down his practice to the general public and only treated chronic cases, and mine qualified. Plus, also, I used to stalk him across Canada to watch all of his seminars, so he had no choice. Yes, so he had his own layers of healing, and in it, when you're in the chaos, you can't really see it, but as you kind of are popping out of it and things are settling down, it becomes very clear. And then throughout seeing patients over and over and over again, and sometimes they're going through healing the same time I was, and they're going through similar aggravations, or they're going through similar changes. And I was like, this is very interesting. So it became very, very clear. So Rubina's watching, she just popped on. Hi, Rubina. It became very clear that everyone goes through 4 layers of healing. This is what we have deduced it down. In those layers, yes, you can have 4 more layers in each layer, but it's very, very clear. And each patient will go through it. And when a practitioner knows what's going on, it's a different level of healing for a patient, because if you don't know what's going on, a practitioner can get very defensive. A practitioner can be dismissive of perhaps what's going on, because one phase I'll get to is difficult. It's very, very difficult. And if a practitioner doesn't really know what's going on, they can be like, oh, you know, it's all in your head, or I didn't do this to you. And so it can be a confusing time for the practitioner and the patient. So if you check out our Facebook group, or sorry, website, that little video's on there. And oh, Tony's saying this is awesome. You're so welcome, Tony. It is our pleasure. So there's 4 layers of healing: weeding, seeding, feeding, and thriving. Each layer is its own distinct healing phase. So in the Brio Living philosophy, we use the analogy of a garden. It's very simple. Most people can understand this analogy. So when you have a garden, and in the garden there's a weed. So the whole medical model and the naturopathic model and the whole supplement model, if you go down to any health food store, there's aisles and aisles of supplements. This is intended to basically, when you're not knowing what's really going on, to treat the weed only. So when there's that weed there, the goal is to get the weed out, and when the weed is gone, which is analogous to the symptom in our analogy, garden analogy here, when the weed is gone, everyone's like high-fiving. They think that they did a great job, and the body is totally restored back to health, meaning their symptom is just gone. So the symptom is not even close to being gone. When the weed is pulled out, the chances of that weed coming back is pretty high, or it will come back in a different part of the garden. So now you have a weed over here. So for example, it's like I used to have chronic ear infections, but that went away. I grew out of it, and now I have IBS. So this person totally helped me. I used to get ear infections all the time. They were great, and then a year or two later, but I had to go back to them, and she or he helped me again because I started to develop IBS, and every time I ate, I would have to go straight to the bathroom. So that is, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It has to be acknowledged, healed, and integrated. When it is just kind of pushed down and treated that way, it will turn into a different symptom. So we see it over and over and over again, and that's why our intakes are so thorough. You'll see that our intake form is 8 pages long. Our initial intake is like, we're asking things like, how is your mom's pregnancy? How is her sister's pregnancy? Like, we're asking deep stuff because we're trying to figure out, where did this thing come from? So just taking one pill or a supplement or something like that to get that symptom gone or treated is not going to treat it. It will transform, turn into a different symptom in a different part of the garden, or it will just come back in the same one, so it looks like a different symptom. This is really the major medical model, and this is weeding. So this is the point where a person is quite scared. Their lab tests can be off. There is a high level of fear state. This is where there'll be a lot of pharmaceuticals, and trust me, I don't have an issue with pharmaceuticals when they're needed. I still have my asthma inhaler. I carry it with me all the time. I carry Benadryl with me all the time. There was a point where I carried an EpiPen with me all the time, and I have no issue with pharmaceuticals. I have an issue when they're used and no exploration further is done, and people think that they are in good health because the symptom has gone away. During the weeding phase, we have to treat acutely. Like if a person comes in with strep throat, we have to treat that. So whether they were just on antibiotics, we will give remedies, we'll treat the sore throat, we'll treat the infection that was there, we'll treat all that. But in the philosophy of weeding, you pull out the weed and everyone thinks that they did their job, but no one looks at the soil that hosts the weed is still intact. So that soil that hosts the weed is still intact. So it's really just a matter of time till another symptom comes, because when you pull that out, that soil has not been treated. So low connection. Can you guys hear me? That was just a bit of low connection. Just give me a heart if you can hear. I think it's back. So the person knows there is no sense of ease in the soul when we're at this phase, because they're really only treating symptoms, and this has to be done. And sometimes it will be surgery. So there, for example, for women, if there is a large fibroid, the uterus has to be removed sometimes we can work around that, but sometimes the uterus, it's a non-negotiable. It just has to be removed. The fibroid is too big. So remove the uterus, and then the person really is just told that they're doing great, and they go home and go on with their daily lives. What under the surface in that soil was happening all those years to create that fibroid? The fibroid was the end state of the symptom, and that end state was removed, but that, I call it like that swirling energy in the soil, has not been treated. So that's still there. And I'll give you an over generalization, and I'm not going to say that, don't quote me as saying that this always happens, but oftentimes, very often, this is a perfect example of transference of energy. When that uterus is removed, very often you'll see a woman soon after, she's doing great, her hormones are balanced, soon after she will have high blood pressure. So she will have a diagnosis of high blood pressure because that process that was unbalanced underneath, which was likely a hormonal process, has now gone to a different part of the body to express itself, because that underlying process was not treated. Does that make sense? So that underlying process is not treated. It has to now be expressed through a different mechanism. then there will be more doctor visits and probably more pharmaceuticals, and again that symptom is pushed down. And so we have a lot of pushing down during this phase. There's no ease. There's a lot of fear state in this phase. A lot of like, I have to get my lab test within normal, or I'm not sure of how my long-term health is going to be. It's really quite a fearful state. There can be acutes. Like I just got an email this morning for what can I do for an acute urinary tract infection. So it's treated, like just acutes, colds, flus, not prevention of viruses and bacteria, but this is like you're in it. There's a lot of pharmaceuticals used, a lot of doctor's visits. There could be a lot of surgeries, but no one is doing the after surgery. How did it get there? There is a powerful external weight given. So we are now, please tell me what to do. The doctor, please tell me what to do. You need to help fix me. You need to fix this. Even naturopathic, what do I do? You have to fix me. So there's the external in. There's very little connection to the internal world. And there's a high level of fear state. That fear state, so the fear state that people are going through right now, that to me is not out of the norm. So anyone I see coming in with weeding, they don't actually realize it, but the undercurrent of weeding is a high level of fear state. And so I see this all the time. I see the anxiety under weeding. I see the inner control. I see the pressure is not the pandemic. The pressure is the symptom or the diagnosis given by the doctor. That is that external pressure now. And then the internal fear state, whatever the primary focus is, will come to the surface. So when we're in a pandemic, that fear state is now, let's say, magnified 1,000, 10,000, whatever it is, and it's totally brought to the surface. But it was there in the first place. So if anyone was in weeding, it would have been there anyways. So I see this all the time anyways, but now it's like a collective. We're all going through it. So normally in the day when a patient is coming in through weeding, it's like one by one by one by one. But now imagine we have all of BC, all of the world going through this collective fear state, and that internal fear that was already there is really being brought to the surface. And most of us don't have the tools to cope because we're still in the weeding phase. Does that make sense? If anyone that makes sense, please give hearts. If that makes sense, that's weeding. So not all, many patients will go through weeding. Their strep throat will be fixed. So lots of hearts. Okay, good. I don't want to, sometimes I turbo talk. And anyone who's watched me do seminars since I started knows that I can like rapid talk. And so I'm just trying to slow down, but it's usually excitement and trying to not forget what I want to write. So many will stop here. Whether it's with acupuncture and you get your pain gone, or whether it's like, say even if a person did have fibroids and then we treated it at the clinic and the fibroid is gone, they'll stop there. Or if it's like chronic strep throats or whatever it was, they'll stop there. So this is what we've been taught in our society, is to stop at this point. The symptom is gone and we're good. We are a society of losing the mastery of healing and program for the magic bullet cures. So the magic bullet is like one pill will help my mood, one pill will help my depression, one pill will help my blood pressure, one pill will help my blood sugar. But never doing the deeper treatment to figure out why did it get there in the first place. So sometimes people will stop there, guaranteed they won't have an ease in their soul because the reason why the symptom got there has not been treated. Another awesome example, it's not an awesome situation, but another awesome example I see so often is post-cancer treatment. Do due diligence with the doctors. We don't interfere with that at all. We have supportive measures for whatever the patient is going through. But let's say the tumor is removed. The tumor is removed. The person has done their due diligence with the doctors. but the reason why the tumor got there has never been addressed. So to me, when they say that there is, what's the word? It starts with the R. The cancer comes back, and they say sometimes it's like within 12 years. To me, it's just like that swirl underneath that created whatever the issue was. It took 12 more years to just resurface. Sometimes it won't because the growing of it was so slow, but that process that created that tumor, you can see, I see it all the time. When patients come in after their surgeries and their chemos are done, I love it because that's when the real work happens. And if you can do that, that's really, really essential and incredible. But many will want to think that they're okay. So this phase is very much a Hollywood phase too, weeding. You'll see so-and-so got some issue and within 2 months they're cured and good. This is just perpetuating the magic bullet. So we so want to buy into the magic bullet. Celebrities are like superhuman, high immune systems, and they just got over their cancer in 2 months and they're cancer free, or they got over their depression super fast. It doesn't work like that. Healing is a lifelong mastery, really, truly. So that is weeding. Does that make sense? That's the first layer. That's a weed. That's a symptom in the garden. If that makes sense, just throw up some hearts and I'll go to the next level. And so this weeding is naturopathic and a lot of pharmaceutical. So that's where a patient is really not sure of their diet. There'll be a lot of, okay, Donna's putting up hearts. There'll be a lot of books being read like each and every day if you're at home during the day, which a lot of us are going to be right now. If you watch a talk show, there'll be a certain talk show, I'm not going to say his name, but there could be up to 3 different fad diets per show. So that's in the weeding phase too, because that worked for that person, so it has to work for everybody else. I have very little connection inwards for what works for me, but I'm going to listen externally to what's going on. Also, externally is going to affect me so much inside. Does my friend not want to talk to me? The world news, all that stuff is very, very much impacting the internal world because the connection here is not really established yet. So high fear state, high living in the mind, the ruminating thoughts, the monkey thoughts, the fear thoughts, and the heart connection is not there yet. And that's the goal. So the goal of healing is to drive and draw the patient patiently down to the heart. So seeding, that's the second layer. How do I know a person's changed? Well, they are willing to explore, hey, yeah, we got your tumor out, we got the fibroid out, we treated your strep throat, whatever it might be. Do you want to explore why did your body process this? Why did your body express this? How did it get there? Yeah, let's do that. I really want to figure it out. Well, it's clear to me there was a 4-step delivery. Your mom was in trauma. She thought that the birth was going to go a certain way, but then it went into an emergency C-section. She felt quite powerless. Then at birth, there was immediate antibiotics given, and so on and so forth. There was antibiotics given at month 2, and then you got sick again at month 6, and then you started to get eczema at month 12 when your mom went back to work because that was an emotionally difficult time for you, I'm assuming. Then they gave you steroid creams and so on and so on. So immune system right off the bat start to being compromised. That's a scenario very common when we start to look into where did this stuff come from, and say, for example, the person is coming in with chronic sinusitis. Their sinuses are always plugged, always green, mucus being spit up or whatever it is, and that, to me, anything mouth to anus is a gut issue. So I know when they come in, yes, I'm going to treat their sinuses acutely. I don't want them flaring. I don't want them to have to go to the doctors every month and get a course of antibiotics, but I want them to look deeper. I want them to treat that, and then I want to get them to the next layer, and yes, they are willing to explore deeper. At this point, they will also perhaps say, hey, Neetu, somebody gave me a book, and it's this author, Eckhart Tolle, and it's called A New Earth, and I'll be like, interesting. So that to me is like, I think they're changing levels. They're going to the seeding level. That is showing that their consciousness is opening up a little bit, and they're not as contracted in the fear state for weeding. They're starting to open up a little bit. They're starting to explore in their inner world, where did this come from? So being so many challenges as a child, now their gut is being totally compromised as a child, and then they're getting these chronic sinus infections. So yes, we're treating the sinus infections, but then they're willing to go back further, and let's treat your gut. This gut has been off balance since perhaps being just born. Perhaps maybe in the womb, because your mom had gone through several traumatic issues in the womb, while you're in the womb too. How do we know that we can go back to this? The body does not forget. So from birth till now, when a person comes in with a symptom, it is a summary of everything they've gone through in the past. Like I said, energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be integrated. And if all these years things have just been pushed down, what you're coming to in the clinic with is a summary of everything that you've gone through in the past. So our goal is to recognize it, unearth it, integrate it, and go back and figure out where it came from, because cellularly it's still held in your gut. And some people, will get confused by that and say, well, that was two. How can it still be in my gut? Well, it definitely is still in your gut. Cellularly, there is an imbalance that was held in your gut up until now. So say, at 2 years old, you had to do the antibiotics for the ear infection. Sure, you had to take the antibiotics for the ear infection, but the question was never, why was your body able to host that bacteria? So why could your body host the bacteria in order to get the infection? Because not every single child will get every single childhood illness. So we're looking at, in the seeding phase, why did this person become susceptible? Where did it come from? We're looking deeper into the physiology. So, naturopaths often get a bad rap for not being science-based, but I don't even understand that, because it's only science-based, because we're looking at physiology, which is the pathways that create synergy in the body or imbalance when they're off, whereas the medical doctors are basically looking at pathology, which is the end state. So what is the disease? So we're looking at how did it get there, and that's pure science. So when you know scientific pathways, you can help trace back to where that person's symptom originated from. This is also where we're looking at past imbalances. Everything that you're experiencing is a summary of the past. The illusion is that you grew out of something, but as we get to talk about it, we get to really connect the dots. So menopause is usually set perhaps from when you're in the womb with your mom. So it's not just a terrible time to go through. There's many imbalances that were not addressed, and I guarantee you a horrific menopause. There was probably every month an Advil or ibuprofen slam back, and there were symptoms prior to the cycle, slam back the painkiller and just run off with your life and try to take care of the kids, do whatever. There was a little window that was being presented every year, and it wasn't looked at. And then at menopause, the body's going to be like, well, let's just deal with it all now, because none of it was dealt with. So that's a real seeding phase, is looking back to how was a person's periods, how were they from day one, how was the mom's periods, how is perhaps a sister's period. So we're looking at the whole picture here. This is also we're looking at medications. Were you sick as a kid? Family history. We're looking at all that, and we're starting to naturopathically treat back there. This phase, there still might be pharmaceuticals in the mix, but we're starting to get a little bit more comfortable with looking within. There is still a high fear state here. There's still a high level of inner control, but the person's consciousness is expanding a little bit and allowing a little bit more introspection. Some people will get irritated thinking, how could me being 2 be linked to what I'm going through right now? And that's great. That's where they're at. And so, you can offer, this is my connection, this is what I think is going on. And if they're not ready, then they're not ready. Then they stop at the weeding phase. And if they're ready, they are in the seeding. So as we dig a little deeper, this can take, months, years, however long it takes. A lot of patients will stop when their gut is improving, when the sinus infections are no longer coming back, when the periods are regular, when they're no longer having like raging PMS, and things are starting to really start to get like a kind of steady state. There's not a lot of flares of symptoms, and it could seem like the garden is starting to be calm, the waters are calm, and many people will stop here. This is a point where you're at a tipping point going into feeding. We're at a tipping point going into feeding, and whether the consciousness knows or not, the deeper self knows or not, this is a little bit of a scary time to go into. And at the second level, you are starting to get more into health. You are starting to look into more books that might be more suited to your specific diet, whether it feels like a paleo diet feels better, whether it feels like a gluten-free diet feels better. It's less so the fad, trying everything, but there is a little bit more connection to, hey, what might feel good to me? What feels good here? What feels good there? There's a starting to open up of the contraction of the body. Fear state is still there, but there is a little bit more of a connection to the inner world. So when we're at this stage, sometimes patients will be like, they just want more money from me. That's the ego talking. So the first 2 levels are really ego-based. If you have a high integrity practitioner, and this isn't every profession, not everyone's in high integrity. That's just the reality of life. But if you in your heart of hearts know you have a high integrity practitioner, they would not carry on if it's not necessary. And if they're saying that there's deeper work to do and you're starting to be like, they just want money, I'm done, I feel good, I feel complete, that's the ego voice tipping in, because the next level is really not always the easiest. So feeding. So when we tip into feeding, it is really not the easiest. So still the first 2 levels, we're looking externally. The external world really shapes us a lot. We are looking still heavily towards doctors. There's a lot of, I gotta listen to podcasts. I gotta listen to health talks. There's a lot of books being read. Nothing wrong with all that. But when it's like your body's kind of trying to tell you something, but you're overriding it by reading this book and saying, that book told me that this is better for me. And your body's starting to try to whisper to you, I don't really like when I eat bananas, it doesn't really feel good to me. But this diet says bananas are okay. It's a fruit. That fructose sugar is good. Take out the white sugar, but the fruit sugar is good. And the diet says all these other things, and you're following it to a T, but still not feeling the greatest. Well, that's because it's still an external. So we're still on top of the garden. We're looking still at the weeds. We're starting to get into a little bit of the roots of where it came from, but it is external. So here, the ego voice can flare. The first 2 layers are for sure ego-based. When we start to tip into feeding, the 3rd layer, this is also very, it's clear. It's super clear. First, there could be a flail. A person, I call it the flail. I see it all the time. A person will like spaz out. And I totally mean this with like utmost respect. But when you know what's going on, it's sometimes funny to witness. They're not in a life or death situation, but they're just like really not happy because symptoms are returning, and they've done so much work with you, and they've invested so much with you, and symptoms are returning, and how could this be? And they'll flail, and then like blame the practitioner for what's going on and often stop treatment. So that's often a scenario. The money one is a big one. That's totally the ego. So when you know your practitioner well, there will not be this like they're trying to swindle me, and also the fear state of like switching that next level. It will be the flail for sure. Sometimes you can talk a patient out of the flail and they will listen, which is awesome. And you can tell also when they're going into feeding because there's more energetic treatments being incorporated. So a person will come in and be like, hey, I joined a moon circle with these women that meet every new moon. Or somebody told me, I was at the pool and somebody told me, hey, you should go see this Reiki practitioner. Or they'll start talking about some other energetic work. And those occurrences are never random. So you still could be on a pharmaceutical, you're still taking remedies from your naturopath, and then people around you are sharing things that are more energetic. And they're starting to, not randomly, but it seems random, start to tell you things like, hey, you should go see this so-and-so practitioner. They were able to help and kind of figure out ancestrally where I was blocked a little bit. I'm not talking about like psychic treatments or anything. I'm talking about energetic treatments. So more like energetic body work, somatic therapies, things like that, Reikis, all that. It could even be like a more of a spiritual depth to the acupuncture, a more of a spiritual depth to the pain treatment because you're starting to unravel the nervous system. First two layers, the nervous system is tightly wound in defense mode, and it's all about being hypervigilant. And at this feeding stage, it's starting to get freaked out because things are about to crumble. So at feeding, it is, my opinion, very difficult, and you need a very skilled practitioner to know what's going on. At this point, we are going into the soil. We are going into what created a baby to have this trauma at the womb, to have rampant infections as a kid, eczema, all this need for cortisol, cortisone creams, this, that, whatever. What spiritually, mentally, emotionally was going on? What is in the soil? So in the soil, you have generational components, you have ancestral components, you have interpersonal relationships. Was there trauma in the family? How does the family deal with trauma? How does the family communicate? How does the family love? How did they show love? How did the family show acceptance? How did the family show self-love? Was there any talk of worthiness? Was there any discussion of how to receive? That's a big one. We will not be able to receive. We'll block it if there's a deep, deep unworthiness. Is there a core wound of abandonment? That was a huge one for me. It shaped my entire life, a core wound of abandonment and low self-worth. And is there terror in the cells? This is kind of like in Charlie Brown, that kid Pigpen. I don't necessarily think that everything's in the DNA. I think that these generational ways of moving and subtleties and subtle nonverbal cues that are shaping this little pure baby is like this pure ball of essence, and the way that the mom or the dad reacts, and that's all programmed non-verbally. It's subconscious, and their reactions are now shaping this child, and that shapes the DNA. And so I think of like Charlie Brown and a pig pen, and that cloud around them. That's what's being passed down generation to generation to generation. So that cloud is what we're working on, because that cloud hosts all that trauma, that lack of acceptance. For me, even what came out as I did deep healing was patriarchal pain, colonial pain. I didn't even know really what those things were. That's how deep it was in there, because I never really learned about it, but I wasn't supposed to learn about it as I was growing up, because it was as a protection mode. So cellularly, there's a lot of protection from the patriarchy for me, the way I carried myself in life, the way I hid. I was in plain sight, but I would energetically hide, and that colonial trauma of just never feeling safe. So GT's giving heart for that. I think she can relate. That colonial trauma, I didn't even know that was there. I had no clue that was there. I didn't even really know what those words meant, to be honest, and that was not by coincidence. My parents purposely didn't talk about things like that because they carry a lot of it too, and it's just about, you're in a different place, they're immigrants, and just be safe. But even when they were living in their homeland, their motherland, they were also carrying that too, because there's also a safety thing in the motherland too. That's carried generations. So that was in my soil. Just to touch on my health, chronic asthma, life-threatening asthma, the lungs. So when you breathe, you take up space. So you receive love. Breath is love. So I couldn't receive love. I couldn't take up space. I couldn't be seen. That's a total terror state to live in. My gut was just shredded with allergies. So whatever I would eat, linked to Indian food, ironically, beans, peas, nuts, and lentils would throw me immediately into the hospital. Even if my mom opened up a package in front of me, immediately into the hospital. So a shredded gut like that, many of you who've done trauma work knows that the gut holds trauma. So there's a lot of trauma. I didn't know. I just thought I had lots of antibiotics as a kid, which I did. I was super sick. I was constantly at the doctor's office. My file was this thick. I missed tons of school, in addition to being in the hospital all the time for the asthma and the allergies, just being sick all the time. My immune system was totally shot. But underneath that soil, there was a lot of cellular, ancestral, generational trauma. It was deep grief that I carried too. So that all had to be addressed and transmuted. When a person is in this phase, there is a crumbling of every mask that we have constructed by our ego to keep ourselves safe. And as those masks are crumbling and shattering to the ground, it is a destructive process like you have never experienced. It is very difficult. So now you have spent all this time, maybe a couple of years, with your naturopath on weeding and seeding, and you're thinking I'm a champion at health. I have done a great job. I am just killing it. And now you come to this phase and you are sicker than ever at times. Not to scare anyone, and my case is way more severe than anyone I've even seen. So this is not typical for everyone. And if I can say, there's a few patients that I've treated from, if you give me thumbs up, I will say your names, but I've treated from seeding to thriving, which is the 4th phase. Their phases were destructive, but not as destructive as mine. However, when I was in the seeding phase, I called 911 8 times in 1 year. So Donna says I can say yes. So, and Angie says too. So, I called 911 8 times in I think a matter of 1 year. So as I was getting to these deeper roots, and all this colonial stuff was coming up, this fear state, codependency wounds, how my parents communicated. My parents are amazing. They were not born to enlightened parents. They're not Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. They did not do their wounding work. So they're contributing to that dust bubble that's being sent down to me. And also being the first child, I get the huge brunt of it with Surinder and Parmjeet full on all their wounds. And so being super sensitive child, they didn't know, and it's not it's not blame of the parents at all. It is what it is. And I truly believe that my soul chose this to learn in this lifetime too. So it's the perfect parents to choose. But there is, codependency, not enmeshment, there's mother wounds. So all of that was in there, and all that had to come to the surface. And as I started to dig deep and till that soil, I went into the ER multiple times. I'd have random asthma attacks, and they would just come up so fast and so hard that I couldn't control them at home by any means. I would still obviously have pharmaceuticals with me. this point, I'm with my naturopath. I'm talking years. Like, we are years into it. And now these asthma attacks are rampant. It's just nothing I can control. I have to call 911. And I didn't know what was going on. And then I'm embarrassed because I'm a naturopath. I should be helping people. And look at how sick I am. So I didn't know I was in seeding. So that's where it came clear, because now I start to see it in all my patients. They're doing the same. The ones that I can carry through who are willing to do the next phases, I can see it in them too. So on top of asthma attacks, then rampant infections are coming out. So there's viruses that came out. There's and still when I'm up leveling, I call it like treating another file that's in my soil. There'll still be stuff that comes out. I had infections come out like you would not believe. I would have rampant eczema, like somebody took a blowtorch from here down and burnt my skin, and then it's oozing impetigo, which is often a childhood disease, a childhood illness. The kids will get it because they have eczema, open skin, and then they get infected. Well, that I probably had as a kid, and it wasn't truly healed. So now all these infections that I had as a kid that were probably just given many, many courses of antibiotics for, still in the soil, in the cells, and they're coming to the surface. So there's months of me being on at home with broken, oozing skin, oozing out infections like you would not believe. Now I'm taking more pharmaceuticals than ever. I'm taking tons of asthma medicine. I have been prescribed an EpiPen, which back in the day when I had asthma, my mom, they didn't have EpiPens, and my mom would just have to run me to the hospital. Now I have an EpiPen with me. I never had to take it. Actually, that's not true. One of my hospital visits was a 4-hour trauma care on me to give me the EpiPen and all that. This is one of my seeding episodes. Now I'm on antibiotics to treat this freaking infection that won't go away. So my seeding, my feeding phase happened over many years, and I'm still just at the cusp of the end of it. And then I didn't know that how much fear I carried. So I just thought I was happy. There's like, darker times that I would go through, a lot of stuff that I had to work through, a lot of like mental, emotional isolation, all that stuff. Now all this stuff is coming up about, oh my God, I'm totally codependent. I can't receive. I block receiving. There's a worthiness issue. There's a self-abandonment issue. All this stuff is even just coming up to light in this past 8 months. There's been a lot of that, and I've done a ton of work. So I've been in feeding for many, many years. I've been in this stage for many years, and it's a total crumbling of the fear state. My inner control to try to control everything was so strong. So I wasn't controlling to friends and things like that. It was my inner control. So every time I go out to eat, I couldn't like relax because my programming was like, you're gonna die. You have to control this all the time. So my inner control was so strong, and that grip of my inner control was so controlling on myself, and it was like this Vulcan grip on my brain that I couldn't even relax, and it created a high level of fear state, and I suffocated myself. So on top of having an asthma that was in my cells, now the mental emotional asthma is just pure suffocation, because I just couldn't, my nervous system was so hypervigilant about trying to keep myself safe. So all the asthma, all the eczema, all the allergies, those were all constructed by my soul to keep my inner child safe, and that's how it figured out to keep myself safe for all these years. So the first 2 phases, we're trying to get rid of something, and then in this feeding phase, we're realizing there's a yin and yang to symptoms. There's a yang, the external is like, we gotta get the symptom, I gotta treat it, and we did so great, and the doctor's team did awesome, whatever. Then there's a yin side to it. When you get to feeding, what is the message behind your symptom? What was the brilliance of your body as a child to create these symptoms? Well, I had 0 boundaries in my life. 0. And how do you create boundaries? And you can't say no. You have to have asthma, you have to have eczema, you have to have gut issues, and that will say no for you. So there was a lot of like protection and walls built by my symptoms. And now when they flare, I'm not mad at my body. I'm not like, so much work I've done, and still it comes up. Now when my symptoms flare, it's like, take a step back. Where did I overstep my boundaries? Because I had zero boundaries and would overextend all the time, be the people pleaser, try to make sure that everyone loved me by doing this song and dance. And where did I overstep my boundaries? Because I didn't say no. So then that wheezing will come up, and now I'm like, oh, wheezing is my friend, eczema is my friend, what's going on? So now I'm going inwards. I'm less here, I'm going inwards. There's a high level of fear when you're at this state, but it's almost here because there was very trying times for me. This is not for most patients, and I'll talk about the 2 who are online, 2 or 3 who are online, and they know. Maybe they can comment too. But you're in this fear state where I know I'm guided, I know I'm doing everything I can, but I'm not at the heart yet, so it's freaky, it's super scary. And this is where most patients would be like, go F yourself and your treatments, and there's no way I'm continuing this with you. And they can be pissed. So outwardly, they're looking like they're pissed because they thought they're doing well and the money they've invested. But truly, when you look deeper, they know subconsciously what we're about to embark on. They're not ready, and that's fine. So that's not for everyone. I know Christy did this with me. We went through feeding to thriving, which is the next phase I'll get to. And there was a shattering of so many illusions that she created with her mind. Same with me. At this point, up until this point, the outer world is like a movie projector, and we are projecting our thoughts onto the movie projector. So we can't even really see the outside world. We see our thoughts and projections of how we want to see it. So when a person is mean to you, when a person is not doing this to you, is it really you doing it to yourself, or you doing it to others? So that is this phase, and we're starting to take that illusion and that mirror and bring it inwards. Instead of projecting the external world, we're going inwards. So you have to crumble all these constructs in order to go internal and connect with yourself, because all these constructs were created in order to keep yourself protected, because there was such a high level of disconnect inside. So Donna's giving a heart, and she just went through this, and she was just, Donna knew. So it was Donna and I were in this holding pattern for years. And Donna, she was holding, and I'd see her run rampant externally. She was running like a 10-mile race, just like me, externally. Everything external, just look externally. And externally, everything was turning out perfect, all her tests, everything like that. And then she knew the real work was crumbling these constructs, and it was generational fear state, and she did it, and it was the perfect time. And her symptom would be her throat would totally close up, and in the past that could have been strep throat, that could have been whatever, but energetically when we're at feeding there's no voice. She's hiding her true self from the world because she's energetically hiding. Is not safe. So we started to unfold that, and she started to drop into her body. Donna totally is super intelligent and lived only here, and now she can feel in her body. She can feel what her right diaphragm feels like. She can feel what her left diaphragm feels like at this point. She can feel what part of her lung is a little bit more contracted. There's none of that. Even me, when I used to get treated, it was here, neck down, dead. I would have fun in life, and I wouldn't feel any emotions, but they would come out as symptoms because I wasn't able to process anything. So I would always joke around that I was dead on the inside because I didn't really get emotional and stuff. But that was my level of disconnect. So the feeding is now we're going internal. We're now transitioning from here. We're starting to get to here, but there's still a high level of fear state because it's scary AF to go inside and crumble all this. So Christy did the same thing. Jatinder is in the process of crumbling her projections, her outer projections, and she is a warrior. She is at it. This is not an easy phase. I think I've been in this phase for, I don't know, God knows how long, maybe 6-7 years. That's not the case for everyone. I think Christy did it a lot faster. Christy's still on the cusp of getting towards thriving. But it's not typical, but for some reason I had a lot more to till, a lot more soil to till, and I think it's probably because the only way is to go through it is to help people. And yeah, Donna says it's a long journey for sure. There is no magic bullet. It's a mastery. So at this point, still there could be medications. I still carry my inhaler. Like after this, I'm going to go to Shoppers and try to find a Ventolin inhaler, because I still carry it with me. It's not about letting go of pharmaceuticals. It's now you're in control. You know why it happens. You still might need a pharmaceutical. And I do tons of naturopathic remedies still. But now the remedies, again, have that yin phase, and I'm treating the mental emotional. I'm able to say no. I have boundaries. I don't care that if I say no to somebody, it hurts their feelings, because now I know that has nothing to do with me. Before, I thought that I was responsible for everyone in the world's feelings. And that is just a boundaryless empath, like running unprotected through the world. It's just so exhausting and just a heartbreaking way to live. So all these constructs are coming down, often linked to viruses, often linked to flares of their original symptoms will flare. But now it's flaring because there's the mental emotional construct that we are correcting. At this point, too, very curious, the family issues. If there's family breakdowns anywhere, that will start to correct, too. Like so-and-so's all of a sudden is talking to their father again. So-and-so's, they're not going to be perhaps best friends, but that base family unit is starting to correct, because those projections are starting to retract in, and you can see that your father was a person and not someone who totally spent their life trying to destroy you. I'm not saying every single family will have this, but there will be some level of family healing too. One of my most amazing patients, everyone's amazing, but one of the most amazing ones, which I haven't even got to that level yet, and I'll get to it in Thriving, but before she got to the next level, which I'll talk about her case in Thriving, she was adopted, and via Ancestry, she just did her test, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 she's getting cousins, biological cousins, contacting her, saying, we've known you've been out there, we've been trying to find you. She meets her biological family. They're incredible. Her mom and dad are meeting her biological dad, and they all love each other. There's a lot of similarities between the parents, well, the bio dad and the mom and dad she has. And there's this huge cellular healing that happens for her. She for sure went through all the phases, and after this one, she popped into Thriving, which is our 4th level of healing. And this phase, yeah, there still can be medications, but there's a knowing, and you're not going into the doctor's office like, I'm so fearful I'm going to die. You're aware that of all the work you do, your immune system is thriving. You're in a highly attuned immune state. And when you go to the doctor, there's no real fear, because they can't tell you something that is going to shatter you, because you're now starting to go inwards and check in here. So you are starting to internally connect and think, what they're telling me, is that right? Should I do this test? Should I not? It's not that you're dismissing their information, but you are now starting to hear that universal consciousness is starting to become clearer. There's a cellular purification that is happening so deep that the mind chatter is lessening, and there's a universal consciousness that you can tap into that was always there, but you could not hear it in the first 2.5 levels. So you're starting to feel you're starting to be the doctor, and you will not go into the medical doctor's office with trembling fear, which is what most do in the first 2 layers. You'll do a blood test, and you're okay with the answer. You're starting to release that grip of control and realizing that there's a surrender in your actions. You take action, a part of it. Low network connection. Can you hear that? So it's back on. Okay. So now you're starting to deeply connect, and then there's not that fear state. So when you pop into Thriving, this is just like that magic level. You are popping into a level where you really are your own doctor. I wouldn't really treat a lot of Thriving patients, because They don't need to look externally for books. They get it's like a download you'll get internally. You're so connected to your inner world. You can sit in silence and hear next steps. Sometimes you want to launch a business, but internally you'll check in and you're 2 years out from it. So you need to do some foundation planning, and you'll listen to that. But in the weeding phase, you'll be like, no, I want to do it now. And that ego will be like, it's now, it's now, it's now. And then it'll be like this hellish journey. And then it will still happen in 2 years. And then you'll just create a story that it's like, it was so much hell and my life is always so hard. Well, if you were in the thriving phase, you would be so attuned inwards that you would know that this first 2 years is going to be foundation building. And then that business will pop up. When you're supposed to take action, you'll know, you'll hear it. It'll be clear to everyone, and you'll take action at that point. So it's not a bunch of like stories being created. You're surrendered to the outer world, and you just do work, and you are living from your heart. You love your life, and you are loving the present moment. You are loving the life that you're in, and you are retracting all those projections. And you see people they now have wounds and projections of their own, and when they're pissed off at you, like when I take people to thriving sometimes, or even if I say something that's deeper, talking about their inner control at feeding, and they get so pissed off and they never want to come back. Perhaps I shouldn't have said it, but if the patient was stuck and we needed to get there, I have to say it. And it doesn't feel great when somebody's mad at you, but I know it's their ego flaring, and it's not the heart. Because from the heart, people are not raging at you when you're trying to help them. So they can rage at you when you're trying to help them when their ego is like flailing. So here you're living from the heart. Now the mind is in the back seat. It's the one that gets you up in the morning. It's the one's like, yeah, we'll lift these weights today. We'll do that today. We'll do this run today. But the heart is running the show. It is a beautiful external world. And there could be chaos like today going on, but you're surrendered to it. What can you do? You take as much action as you could have up until this point for your immune system, and you're surrendered to it. Now you listen. Do I have to close my clinic? Yes, I listen. Do I want to close my clinic? No, but I'm surrendered. And I know that in this time, if I resisted and fought it, I'm missing the golden gem that is being presented. Perhaps we need more rest. Perhaps me running around since 16, this is like this blessing that I've always wanted. Perhaps there is a lot of giving that we can do while we're on the break, and being of service, and that is gratitude and living from the heart. So we've constructed these within a day, constructed all of these seminars to give out to patients and be of service. So that's living in the heart. You're surrendered to the outcome, and you know that you've done your 100% due diligence, but it's not an externally controlling deal, because the control comes from fear state. So if I watch the news 24/7, I can try to control it. The outcome, I won't be like blindsided. I can try to control something. Those are all projections and illusions of that little mind, that child self that wants to help. So we got to give that self love, but once that's integrated, when you're in thriving, you really are your own doctor. You're surrendered. There isn't that external control. You know, all we can do is control our inner world, and our outer world is a mirror manifestation of what's inside. Here you really are your own doctor. And then that patient who I was talking about, who had all that incredible healing with her family, I can feel it coming, this next level for her and her partner. But after that healing occurred, then they sold their place, they bought a van, and now they're traveling the world in a van and have an Instagram page. So they popped out of everyday society, every day, like the grind of going to work, having a mortgage, this, that, whatever. Was that a social construct that everyone has to have? Not really. So they came up with an alternative, and they're living that. So they're living outside of these social norms, and their heart, they're living in their heart, which is expansive, and it doesn't have social constructs and norms that everyone has to follow. So they're living outside of that. So they're living really, that's totally from your heart. Now, I'm not saying that everyone has to like quit their job and like move into a van, but there is I gotta live my passion. That little whisper that I never ever allowed myself to acknowledge was there, that will no longer be the case. You can't deny it at Thriving. You are so fiercely dedicated to your soul's purpose at this point. And does that mean moving out of the social construct of North American life? For some, yeah. Can you free yourself being in the social construct of North America? For sure, because that freedom is within the heart. Even one of my business coaches, 3 kids, a husband who has a high executive position in one of these huge companies, all of a sudden within 6 months moved the entire family to Costa Rica, popped out of any social norm that she was used to. No more being driving around kids, no more doing this. Now they're just like they're present in Costa Rica. They are all together in their house. They don't drive around like crazy. Sure, their kids are in some events, but there's a lot of like slow parenting going on there. And that is not a typical thing to do, and it takes a lot of courage, but I believe she was already in Thriving. And so when you meet them, you can tell they're totally in Thriving. So that's their new norm, and they are their own doctors. They're so connected within. They are connected to what diet they should do. So at this point, it's not about books and external fad diets. You're tuned into what feels good to you, what doesn't feel good. You could be eating gluten-free, but that gluten-free muffin that you're eating is full of tapioca and potato starch. So at that point, you'll know that that's really not a good food for me. You'll feel it. Yes, you're following the gluten-free diet, but what's really feeling good is a whole foods gluten-free diet. So more so whole grains or something that comes from the earth, and you'll just know, you'll feel it. So that's because your inner world is the connection. Now, does that make sense to everyone? When you get a person to Thriving, that's the ultimate goal. It's just like, go off, fly, little bird, enjoy your life. You have a superhuman immune system. Does that mean you're going to live to 110? Not necessarily. You can be at a 10 out of 10 wellness and still within the year pass away, but you're at a 10 out of 10 wellness. You've crumbled all those social constructs that kept you a prisoner to yourself. You are in freedom. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've extended your life, because still there's the soul's imprint of how they're supposed to carry your life and your purpose and where you're supposed to be. And so, yeah, Jatinder says, I can't wait to get there. It's very common to want to be in Thriving, and because the feeding is not easy. I think I'm just at the cusp of Thriving now. I thought I was in Thriving for many years, but surely that was not the case because of this deep stuff that just kept coming up this past year even. So yeah, does that make sense? I also think, if I can tie this into this virus, the earth is going through feeding right now. So the earth, think about it. When I talked about feeding, you're bringing up your purification. You are crumbling social constructs. You are taking away all illusions and bringing back what's true, going within. We are symbolically being asked to go within. Stay in your home. Go within. Now you have to sit with your thoughts. These thoughts that we're created so much busyness, and we're really not free because we're a slave to our programming. Whether we live in Canada or not, we're not free. We're a slave to that inner programming, that cloud, that Charlie Brown cloud. That's what we're a slave to, and we are run by that. So we are being asked to go within. Let those anxious feelings that were already there, those painful feelings, those controlling feelings, come to the surface and feel them. Give them love. Thank them for the control that they're trying to embark to keep you safe. Connect to it, versus we spend our entire life running to work, running to take care of kids, running to do everything because we don't want to connect at all to that part that's just trying to be controlling and try to help us. So now we're inside, we're being forced to stay inside, we're less driving, we're hopefully eating home-cooked foods, we're relying more on ourselves. We have to, inwards, figure out how to survive and keep rhythm and routine and all of that. And what is coming up? There's a virus. So again, at feeding, oftentimes bacteria infections, parasites, viruses will come up. So there's a virus being purified. So I believe that the earth, this is a spiritual time of spiritual awakening to break all these social constructs, to wake up what is really going on in my day-to-day life. Do I like my job? Do I like my partner? Do I like where I live? Do I want to do this? We're being asked. We can no longer run. We have to be quarantined. We have to face it. So we are in feeding, which is very uncomfortable for many people, very, very difficult. And a person who hasn't even gone through weeding, seeding is being thrust into feeding. So the earth, I'm hoping, this is what is going on, is my thoughts, there will be a purification, a deep, deep soil purification after this process. My cousin works for BCAA. He keeps sending me shots of barren streets. There's no car accidents. There's no pollution. There's waters being cleared. There's people being forced to stay at home and deal with their thoughts. There's more communication. There's family time. If years and years ago, I went to Maui, and this isn't that long ago, and we went to learn to surf. And at that time, we also heard about various restaurants that you got to check out, like you got to eat here, whatever. And our surf instructor, there was a little school, an elementary school by the surf school, and I asked him, I'm like, where's this restaurant? I've heard about this. It's like you got to go here, you got to eat here. And he was a young guy, and he was like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know where that is. He's like, I grew up here. This is my elementary school, and this is where I work. And he's like, we don't go anywhere. This is where I work. It was maybe like a 10-minute drive. If you've been to Maui, it's like one street. He didn't even travel to that little market. So traditional cultures, this is not foreign to them. When I went to India to my dad's village, nobody had a car. So we stayed in the village, and that's just what you do. You don't run around like a maniac all the time. And I'm not saying that we're maniacs. I'm saying that a lot of us, we create busyness, this moving around, but they can sit. So in that village, you would sit and you would like hang out with people. And that's why when girls get married, they create songs that are like so sad, because you could be moving 10 minutes away, but you don't drive back to your village because nobody really did that. Where you are is where you are. So we're being asked to go back to that. And to me, I quite think that this is an amazing opportunity. Do I want to come into this as a resisted state, or do I want to come out of it pure and surrendered? And I'm going to take this opportunity to do so many things that I can never, ever get to, because just life is so crazy hectic. So I have so much on my plate. This last few days, I've never been busier. I almost can't even eat. I'm so busy. So I'm taking this time to like create. I'm taking it to learn stuff. I'm taking it to take Brio to another level. I'm taking it to as a gift of grace and space for me to rest, because I literally run around also like a maniac all the time. So my body is loving it, and I can't say that like as hard as it was to close Brio, because God knows to open a small business is like a passion project on a steroid level, and to create that practice was like every little bit of blood, sweat, and tears to create it. The fear state to close it, it's a small business, like a house of cards. There's no security in it. And so to close it for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, should be the ultimate fear state for me, but I'm surrendered to it. So and a couple of years ago, I would be a nervous wreck. I would probably have eczema everywhere, asthma attacks, but I'm surrendered to it. So I just trust. There's nothing I can do. So I'm trusting. We are doing phone consults, so we've pivoted that way. So we're still taking phone consults. We're seeing, all my visits were for 10 years over the phone with my naturopath. So there's tremendous healing that can happen over the phone. So we have pivoted that way, but, this should be like a fear state, but I'm actually taking low connection. I got a fire under my ass to do something. I have a purpose. I got to carry it out. So I think that the world is going through weeding, seeding, feeding, thriving, and each patient goes through weeding, seeding, feeding, thriving. And so just think, where are you? Where are you in this? And a lot of times when you're in feeding, it's not easy to hear feedback too of where you're at. I haven't read this yet, but I wanted to bring this up too. Somebody just told me about this book. It's by Robert A. Johnson. It's like a really thin book called Inner Gold, and it's about all that projection, so that outward projection. So most of us, when we're irritated or whatever, it's our outer wounds being projected onto the world. And so this book illustrates that and talks about that. So I buy millions of books, and they sit, and I just feel comforted by their being in my home, but I never have time to read them, and now I have time and space to read them. So, you can see it from one point of view, like I'm being shut down, or you can see it from a beauty point of view. Are we being asked to go within and cellularly purify along with the earth? I truly believe that that's what the case is. So that is what I wanted to say. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Just note that we are still open. We are still taking visits. We're doing teleconferencing. We pivoted quite easily and effortlessly. You can book in your return half an hour. We'll send out remedies. If you're local, we'll schedule a time where you can pick it up, but we're social distancing pickups, so nobody is crossing paths while they pick up, and nobody's entering the clinic. They just pick it up from outside, and that's worked amazing. I will be back on Monday. Check the schedule. So I'll be doing a Facebook Live on Monday again about the monkey brain or whatever I want to talk about. If you guys have questions, I'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. But 4 o'clock on Monday, we'll be back on. Anyone have any comments? So Donna was talking about feeding and says, yes, it's a long journey for sure. And Jatinder, who I've also worked with on feeding, she says, I can't wait to get there. Can't wait to get there for sure, but also love the process. And I know that's hard to feel when it's so sometimes hellish, but it's important to love where you are too. And Wendy says, thank you so much. Donna is giving some hearts. Yeah, that's awesome. Any other questions? If you have a quick comment, I'll stick around for a minute or two. Jeanette, Jeanette's online. Yes, Jeanette, if I can say, incredible. She has gone through feeding at the gut rot level and is just like a champion. So awesome. Neetu also is going through the feeding. She's a big time warrior woman. I attract a lot of warrior women. I think that's you tracked what you are going through. And Tony says, thank you so much. Tony has been through, I think, probably most of these levels too. So truly believe and agree and miss you. Tony, with this deep, deep wisdom that you have, there's many of these layers that you have gone through, 4 levels that you've gone through. Jeanette says anxiety to the nth level. So how are you coping right now? If you can quickly comment, because this is like the final exam or the PhD level of someone who has had anxiety to kind of control and feel safe. Is there any other comments? Maybe she's popped off. But yeah, I'll check in with Jeanette to see. Jeanette is feeling the emotions and releasing and crying. Yes. So when you're in feeding, it's not like you'll never have emotions again. It's you actually feel them instead of having symptoms. So I would have rampant asthma attacks rather than feeling anything. So you feel the emotion, you're able to process it, not judge yourself for it, love yourself for it, tell yourself, yep, she says I'm safe. That's exactly it. So that's all the body really, really ever wanted. That inner child just wants to be parented by us. So us as adults, we need to, at this point, parent our inner child, and she's just asking for your love. But if you shun her and run away and go to work or, distract yourself, she's just going to feel abandoned over and over and over again. So yeah, lots of crying, releasing, and feeling. Crying is an amazing thing. It's an amazing way to alchemize our emotions and energy. Lots of hearts from Donna. So thank you guys. Hopefully that made sense. I don't think I've ever done an actual verbal talk of the 4 levels of healing. It's just, like I said, we kind of shyly go through it in the clinic, but we're ready to really bring it out as our signature clinic program that each patient, this is what you're going to go through. Are you forced to go through thriving? No. You can stop wherever you are comfortable with, but this is really what healing is these 4 levels of healing. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm off to go find my Ventolin inhaler because they are really low. So I think I've located one, so I'm just going to get one for extra keeping. And have a great day. Sending you lots of love vibes, lots of processing what's coming up vibes. Be present with it, just feel it. This is your opportunity to not run from it, feel grounded. We're being asked to activate our root chakra, our adrenals, our feeling of safety and security. We can't move, so really that's what we're being asked to do. And will you fight it or will you surrender? That's the question. And we're really at a time of cellularly purifying the earth and ourselves. So thank you. So Kelly Emmer says, thank you, love to you. Please share with your family and friends. We'll be back on Monday at 4 p.m. Thanks, everyone.